Good afternoon, everybody. I have 12:01, so let's go ahead and get started. Um, I'm glad to be back. We've missed a couple of months. It has been a crazy couple of months here in Kentucky with the weather and with the disasters and with the flooding and the storms and the tomatoes or tornadoes. So I can say it is good to be back with these webinars. We have a great speaker for you today. I have the next couple of months of speakers scheduled. I'll get into them a little bit later. But otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. So as you all know, the Wednesday webinar, I put this on for public information officers and other communication related fields. We do them every month, usually the third Wednesday of the month. This month and next month and June are all going to be on, I believe, the last Wednesday of the month. So make sure if you have this on some sort of calendar that you make those adjustments. But if you have any topics for future subjects or speakers, love to hear from them. I will try to do my best to get some scheduled. Today's topic. So when disaster strikes, you are there to make a difference, and you will be faced with decisions, challenges, and opportunities that will define success for you and the people you serve. In this session, Ed Conley will provide practical, real-world perspectives on how to overcome setbacks, develop teams, respond compassionately, and serve with integrity. These practices are derived from years of working in the eye of the storm, from 9/11 to Hurricane Katrina to the 2010 Haiti earthquakes to Superstorm Sandy and the Columbine School shootings to the Deepwater Horizon Oil Spill. As communicators, it is crucial that we are prepared to make decisions amid chaos, set operational priorities, and engage with the public in the most challenging scenarios imaginable. So, our speaker today, thank you, Ed Conley, for joining us. Ed served nearly 3 decades with FEMA, leading teams around the globe in response to some of history's most significant disasters. He has also managed national incidents and international emergencies with the United States Coast Guard, Secret Service, the Centers for Disease Control, and Department of State. He was appointed as a U.S. liaison representative with NATO. Ed traveled throughout Europe on emergency preparedness assignments. Before joining FEMA, he spent 7 winters on the National Ski Patrol. Ed is also a public speaker and the author of Promote the Dog Sitter and Other Principles for Leading During Disasters. Excellent book. I'm in the middle of it right now. Recommend it. He currently resides in Seattle, Washington, so for him it is early in the morning, but please give me a virtual round of applause and welcome Ed here. Ed, I am going to stop sharing my screen for a second so you may say hello.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All good?
Loud and clear.
All right, roger that. Well, David, thank you very much for the introduction. Great to be here, and we'll jump right into it. First slide, David.
There we go.
Yep. So, as David mentioned, um, yeah, you guys have been the bullseye, it seems like, the last couple of years. Severe storms, flooding, tornadoes, and it's kind of what I remember about Kentucky when I worked for FEMA. I remember three things. One is uh, you guys have a lot of disasters. Second thing, your disasters tend to stack. You just don't have a flood event. You have severe storms, ice storms, then a flood event, and then you got tornadoes on top of that. So you deal with a lot of stuff at the same time. And the third thing I remember about working Kentucky is your disasters are not normal. Maybe a politer way to say that is your disasters provide us a lot of learning opportunities. And I was just talking to someone, a friend of mine, former female colleague who's been working in Kentucky, and he said they just when you work a flood in Kentucky, you see things, you learn things you don't learn in any other disaster. It's just not a normal flood; it's a Kentucky flood, and that really hits home with me. The last disaster I worked in your state was 2009, the big ice storms. Do many of you remember that? The 2009 ice storms? I know it was a while back. but it's kind of famous. It has a nickname. It was the Great Peanut Butter Disaster, and you can Google that. You can Google Peanut Butter Disaster Kentucky, and that ice storm will pop up, and it's kind of a good illustration of the crazy stuff that as communicators you learn working Kentucky. It's almost like the disaster gods look at you all and say, they deal with a lot of disasters. They got it down. We need to throw some more challenges at them to keep them at your toes. And that's what happened in 2009. We were working that ice storm there. And at the time, word got out that there was salmonella contamination of peanut butter. Well, it turns out we were working with the state and you at the county and local level to distribute nearly 1 million MREs, meals ready to eat, because power was out and people were running food. So we had about 950,000 meals ready to eat on the street in Kentucky when news leaked out. Well, we had a PIO, I think it was a Fed, not even working in Kentucky, who heard about the salmonella thing, found out that the MREs had peanut butter packages, and decided on his own, independently, without any coordination with locals or the state or even the Fed team on the ground, to put out information about that. And so this guy put out a very calm, reassuring message that when something like this, don't eat the MREs. They've been contaminated. Immediately throw them away. Well, that caused a huge issue, obviously, in Kentucky, and we were chasing that for quite a while. Originally we went with the message that the MREs were fine to eat. However, if you had a concern, you'd probably throw away the peanut butter. Then we huddled with the logs guys, and they said, well, actually, we narrowed the peanut butter down to just one manufacturer. We pretty much stripped that all out before distribution. We've been on top of this for a few weeks. The governor was reassured. As a matter of fact, he ate some peanut butter from an MRE at a press conference to reassure people. His press secretary was asked, how's the governor feeling? And he said, so far, so good. And then we weren't able to reassure everyone to the extent possible. So actually, we ended up doing a recall of all the MREs that had peanut butter. But that's an example of an issue I've never dealt before. I never thought I'd spend 3 weeks in Kentucky talking about peanut butter, but there you go. So when I say, Kentucky gives you unique challenges, I'm not kidding. And I think you're going to have some opportunities to deal with some more unique challenges in your state. I think that what's happening right now in the emergency management landscape is historic. The shift that's happening and the redefining of responsibilities is it's probably the greatest efforts that's been undertaken since 9/11 in reshaping this landscape. And I think what it means for you at the state and local level, especially, is that you're going to be looking at a really streamlined federal emergency management, emergency response effort and agency in FEMA. I think FEMA is going to survive, but I think it's going to be really streamlined in terms of its mission. The impact to you, I think, is going to be twofold. One is less money, and two is more responsibility. So I think you're going to hear a lot of encouragement along the lines of, okay, we're going to just have to do more with less. For you particularly, that may mean you're going to have to do everything with nothing. So I think you're going to have some particular challenge. So it's going to be a good opportunity maybe to look at this fork of the road of where we are, and maybe just spend some time thinking through how you're going to position yourself and what sort of priorities you're going to have as disaster communicators, because the disasters aren't going to stop. The need for your services and your efforts and your ability to coordinate and work together as a team is going to increase. So I'm going to throw out 10 ideas for you that I've been studying, I've been practicing, I've been bouncing off people throughout the U.S. and in different countries and gotten some feedback on. So I want to give you some thoughts and some takeaways, some thoughts and ideas that maybe be helpful for your professional toolbox. And we'll go into it. So here are 10 I have. Next slide, David. So these are my 10. And I'll spend a few minutes on each one to give you some examples of why they're important, what they mean, why I recommend them. So number one for me is show up. I think as disaster communicators, and I learned this early on, this idea of embracing the idea of that you have to have a show up personality if you're going to be in this business. You have to be almost excited for this opportunity to work in disaster and deliver your services and ability. And I embraced this early on in my life, in my career. I wasn't the most articulate person. I wasn't the best writer, but I decided early in my career that I was going to be a show up person. I was going to, if there's a disaster and I got a chance to go, an opportunity to be a part of it in any capacity, I was going to go. I was going to show up and I was going to be there. And I just think you don't get a lot of opportunities to do it. But they're legacy defining. They're what people remember you for. And I think they're the chance where you get to make your biggest contribution in those events when you show up. And you build those relationships, you get chances to advance your career, you learn things. And it's something that I strongly encourage people to embrace those opportunities. If one of your challenges is, trying to get a seat at the table before disasters, you're going to have much more success if you have a reputation as being someone who shows up during disasters. So it's a real builder, and it's a real important thing to have as part of your toolbox. Just sort of that rep and that acknowledgement is that when it's going crazy and all hell's breaking loose, that you're going to be the type of person who will be there and they count on, and that goes such a long way. Number two is defining your mission. And I struggle. I think this is really important to sort of think through at whatever level, whatever agency you sit at, and whatever level of government you're working at. I kind of have a problem with the phrase crisis communications. I don't hate it, but I don't really love it when it comes to defining what we do on disasters. I think it sounds too defensive to me. It's sort of private sector brand protection, reputation protection. The political world uses it a lot. It's defense. I think our job is to play offense. We're disaster communicators. We're certainly, we want to protect the brand and reputation of our organizations and all that. But equally important, maybe even more important, it is to me anyway, is offense. And that is delivering information that makes a difference in people's lives after a disaster. And, I adamantly believe that when disaster strikes, information is just as critical, just as essential as any other service, government and other NGOs and any other partner in the response is providing. And so that's sort of my defining the mission thing that you think of is that that you're an operational component and you play offense. And so I always encourage people who work in this skill area, who have for public information, emergency information, disaster communications. Sort of spend some time thinking through that, and defining what your position is. What do you believe about what we do, and how do you define it? And number three is mobilize the public, and the big question that I think you might want to answer or ask yourself and see where you line up is, when a disaster strikes, do you consider the public an asset or a liability? Because whichever way you fall, however you answer that question, is going to drive so much of your messaging and your strategy. And it's just an important question for you to sort of think through and decide where you line up. I believe that the public is an asset. I don't think it's a liability that needs to be managed. I think it is an asset that can be mobilized to support the response. And so when I ran a disaster communications efforts for FEMA to big disasters, that was sort of a philosophical foundation that I had, that what words, phrasing, strategies, tactics that we do to help mobilize and make the best use of the public as an asset in a disaster. And I'll tell you one community that I think knocks this out of the park is Fargo, North Dakota. They deal with a lot of big flood events, tornadoes, winter storms, but they have such a system down to mobilize their public. They got them filling sandbags. They have them walking levees. They have them. They close schools, and they got the football team out there. They have a full community mobilization effort, and it just quadruples the strength and the capacity of their response team. So I always throw that out to people, this idea of, do you think the public this liability, this problem we're going to have to manage, or do you think of it more of as an asset that we can trigger and use? So I always throw that out to people, and I think it's a good thing to sort of think through. Number 4 for me is dealing with misinformation. And you may call, some people say disinformation, some people call fake news, misinformation. To me, it's kind of all the same thing. I know there's some fine differences between that, but it's all about, to me, it's all about people who need accurate information to do the right thing in a disaster, and they're not getting it. And I'm not talking about angry disaster survivors or legitimate criticism of laws or policies. I think that's all fair game. That's not misinformation. That's important public policy debates, important feedback for the operation, important points of fusion. Now, we need to address this as communicators. What I'm talking about is, China, Russia, Iran, maybe to some extent North Korea, domestic terrorist groups within the United States, anarchists who want to destabilize our government, people who have sophisticated misinformation, disinformation strategies specifically designed to cause confusion and destroy public trust in our institutions during disasters. And I'm telling you, they are getting really good at this. You look at Maui wildfires, 2003, you look at Hurricane Helene before the election, and you look what's happening on X and TikTok and other social media platforms. And a lot of the real damaging, most sophisticated stuff is coming from these sorts of organizations and groups. And they have concluded, and I think they've been successful at it, is that disasters really offer a unique opportunity to try to destabilize the government. And I think it's going to be a bigger and bigger responsibility in our world of disaster communicators to deal with that, to respond with that. I think people are getting really good at understanding the problem and talking about the problem. What I encourage you to do is start thinking about strategies to deal with it. There's some good stuff that came out of the Maui wildfires. They did a lot of community outreach. They linked up with non-governmental people at the local level who had respect and trust within the community, and they made them part of the team. Taiwan's done some really interesting stuff because they deal with a lot of stuff from China during their elections, during their disasters. They use a lot of credible third-party organizations to be fact checkers. The media trusts them. So it's not the government saying this is misinformation. It's a legitimate third-party, credible organizations that saying it's misinformation. So there are examples of strategies out there, place, and it's probably something you need to look at if you haven't already. Building in your toolbox. If we're dealing with a big misinformation and this is a runaway train and we got, people are confused and it's hurting our response, it's hurting them. Here's 2-3 strategies we have to deal with it. So where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm at leveraging AI, number 5. I tell you what, you guys, I've starting to really fall in love with AI as a tool, and I'm starting to really use it more effectively to help me in terms of research, help me organizing presentations, help me not as a writer but as a reader to look at some of the stuff I'm putting together to see if it makes sense. I've used my 2 platforms that I've messed around with are Chat GP, and I use Grok a lot on Twitter. And I know a lot of people don't like X right now because of Elon Musk, but I'm a big fan of the Grok AI platform, which you get for free if you're on X. And I use that a lot. I use it a lot in my personal life. I just bought a new boat, and first ever boat, and I have tons of questions like how to operate it and dock and all that. So I'm always asking Grok questions. But I use it a lot now for the disaster communications world and the crisis leadership world, just to bounce off ideas and spores. I'm getting good at the prompts. I was out in Hawaii working with all the county officials and the state on a big cybersecurity exercise planning event. And we did some breakout sessions with them, and we threw some particularly challenging questions at the breakout groups. We asked them to organize some initial priorities and some communications messaging and all that. And I was watching all these breakout groups, and they were brainstorming and they were whiteboards and everyone talking, very engaged. And I asked the state director from Hawaii, James Burrows, I go, hey, would you be cool if any of these groups used AI as a tool to help them through this breakout? I go, would you consider that cheating, or would you consider that creative use of the tool? He goes, I think it would be great. I think it's a tool that they can leverage. I'd like to see how they're using it, and I like them to incorporate that part of the presentation. It was interesting to me that none of the breakout groups did that, and that he thought it was a great idea. So I'm just really starting to think more of how to leverage this AI tool, because I think it could really help do our jobs. And obviously there are caveats, there's cautions with it. Not everything's accurate. You don't want it to write your message in an emergency situation, but maybe you could bounce it off as a reader. Does this make sense? So leveraging AI is, I think, really going to be a very potent, powerful tool that you can add to your toolbox. And thinking about how you're going to incorporate that management and manage it and use it, I think if I was in your position, that would be one of my personal priorities, something I would want to get better at. Number 6 is something, this is a chapter in my book. It's probably most popular chapter, this idea of thinking threes. And I kind of stumbled on this early in my career. I was not the most confident guy when I first started working with FEMA. I, I thought I had some good ideas, but I was really horrible at explaining them or speaking up in meetings. And if someone sort of called on me impromptu and I wasn't prepared or expecting it, I kind of stumble, and I don't think I made a lot of sense. So I discovered this tool, Thinking in Threes, and I use it as just a way to organize myself and organize my thoughts and present ideas. I think it's a pretty powerful tool. And here's a couple ways that I use it. Like if I'm ever when I was working disasters at FEMA, and I talked to my mom or dad or something, they asked me what I was doing or what I saw, or I would just say, here are three things we're doing right now. Here are three operational priorities. If I was in a meeting and someone would said, well, what's the disaster communication plan for the next 24 hours? I would say we have three priorities, three strategies. I would just taught myself to sort of think in threes. And you see a lot, once you sort of study this, think in threes, you'll see it used a lot, especially in disasters. You'll see governors say we have our top three priorities. You see it a lot on wildland fire. They talk about their three priorities, which is, we're going to either let the fire burn, we're going to just fight to contain it, or we're going to put it out immediately. So you'll see this a lot. I'll tell you another thing that's really powerful with this think in threes concept. And this is going to make you a hero in a lot of disasters. So one of the best ways to solve a problem on a disaster is to use the Think in Three as an organizational tool and do these three things for any issue or any problem you face on a disaster. Number one, define the problem. Here's the problem. Here's defining the problem. Number two, describe the outcome you want. What would success look like? And then number three, develop three strategies to get there. If you use that sort of organizational tool and approach for any sort of issue or challenge you have on a disaster, it's going to deliver for you. So I got a whole chapter in my book, and I got lots of examples how that used. But Think in Threes is in our fast charging, crazy environment as disaster communicators. It's not a bad way to approach a lot of things. And then, number 7 here, I got avoid the myth of panic, public panic. This is another thing to think through and decide where you land on it. I can't tell you how many disasters I've worked where I was instructed or told we need to avoid public panic. And I've done a lot of research on this. I just can't find any examples of mass public panic in disasters. I think it's a myth. You may disagree, and that's fine. But I think you need to decide for yourself whether there's going to be mass public panic in disasters or not. And I can't find any examples of it. But I've been instructed to try to avoid it, which the reason I don't like getting that guidance or that instructions or those orders, because I think it's a real slippery slope. I think if you're trying to avoid mass panic that's probably will never occur, you're going to be maybe potentially lying to people, misleading them, withholding information that they need. So I always give people the encouragement to just sort of have a position on that in case they ever are in a situation where they are instructed to try to avoid panic. And lots of good research on this, lots of examples. Big disasters where where you think that it would occur, and it didn't. I think, and I certainly saw this every time I worked Kentucky, is, lots of times, especially at the front end, you really see people at the best. And people can take a lot of tough news. They can take a lot of bad information. Not wouldn't say bad information, a lot of take in a lot of the challenges ahead, the difficulty. And I think sometimes we really underestimate the capability of the public and our citizens, our residents, to deal with really horrifying events. I think people have a lot more in them than we give it credit to. So that's kind of where I fall on that. And whenever I get asked or instructed to, well, how are you going to avoid public panic? I said, it won't happen. We're going to tell people the truth. We're going to be direct. We're going to give them the good, bad, and ugly. No holds barred. That's where I fall on it. But I encourage other people to sort of have that in their wheelhouse, do you believe it or not? Which kind of leads me to number 8, which is talk straight, which is, core value that I've embraced as a communicator. And whenever I had a team, I said, we're going to talk straight. And to me, here's, talk straight is we're going to under promise and we're going to over deliver. We're not going to say something, is going to happen tomorrow. We're going to say, we hope to get this accomplished within 10 days and then strive like hell to deliver it 7. We never minimize an event, but we don't exaggerate an event either. And here's kind of the toughest one of all. If we screw up and make a mistake, which we inevitably we do, we own it and we're the first to tell people. But that's sort of kind of my thought. It's read 4. I've got 5 strategies in terms of what talking straight means to me and what I try to get the teams I worked with to embrace and live by is making sure that we're getting people most timely, accurate, and accessible information so they can make the best decisions. And then number 9 for me is building relationships. I think more than anything else, that the business we're in is a relationship building business. I don't know, David, I know Brett Hansard. And Brett and I go back 35 years. And he's still finding stuff for me to do, and we're still working together in and out of FEMA and all this time. It's why I really love being in disaster communications and working with people like you. I think it's just this industry and this service, I think attracts the most awesome people. And just you never know who you're going to be the boss of, and the next time they may be the boss of you. You never know. Someone's working at the county and then they go to the state. Sometimes state people go to the feds go back to the state. It's a small world. And there's always a danger during high stress, difficult environments, like tough disasters, that, you can damage those relationships, get your emotions away from you. You get angry. You never let it go. And I wasn't perfect at this, but I always tried to focus long term. I always looked at really my job as a disaster communicator. If I could sum them up in one phrase, was to build long-term positive relationships. Because if I was doing that, then I was probably doing everything else right. So I put a strong relation. You guys are going to have your new Madrid's going to go someday and devastate Western Kentucky. And, worst case scenario, it happens when you're already dealing with a flood or an ice event or something else. Well, it's been 200 years since Kentucky's had an earthquake of any magnitude. So you might want to have some friends in your professional network who dealt with an earthquake, who dealt with earthquake messaging. That's the power of focusing on building relationships. If you ever need someone to, if you have another peanut butter incident in Kentucky and you need someone who's been through it, you can call me. Because I've dealt with that messaging on how, when your peanut butter is contaminated with salmonella. So, yeah, and I know David and I've talked about this. He has that philosophy, which I fully embrace, is that, hey, anyone wants to be part of my team and part of our communications team is a member of the team. Big tent, come on board. So I think concentrating on building relationships and making friends and adding to your professional is never a wasted effort. And then finally, number 10 for me is this idea of relax, reflect, rewind. I am paying a lot more attention to this, especially as I speak, and how much feedback I'm getting from people interest in that wellness area. And I think there's sort of two ways to look at it. One is how you're going to take care of yourself, and then number two is how you're going to take care of your team. I was doing some work in Maui after the wildfires, and I was talking to the fire chief, and he said he had one of his firefighters show up the next day after the fire swept through, and he came to work and he was kind of acting normal, but he wasn't all quite there, and we sure it was a devastating event. We were all pretty shook up. But he says something seemed off about this guy. Well, it turned out this firefighter, his wife was one of those who had jumped into the water to escape the flames, and she was still missing. And he showed up to work the next day, even his wife, because he didn't know what else to do. And he just had this conflict between the job and his family. And so you're going to have that on big disasters. And I think, looking, just being aware of that, looking out for your teammates and thinking how you want to manage that, how you want to find out about that, what you're going to do. That's something I wish I'd gotten better at. And when I was managing disasters, I think I was so mission focused and survivor focused. I wasn't enough focused on my team and my people. And the second thing is taking care of yourself. James Lee Whitney ran FEMA. He would hunt and fish. I worked with people who are big bike riders. They'd sometimes bring their bikes on disaster deployments, ride bikes. The mayor of Grand Forks, Pat Owens, loved school kids, and they adored her. And after the big flood, whenever she got down and discouraged and felt beat up, she would go visit schools, and the kids would have sign autographs, and they loved her. And that would cheer her up. Abraham Lincoln, when he was president during the Civil War, I think someone calculated he went to the theater like 150 times. Teddy Roosevelt rode his horses. Craig Fugate, when he ran FEMA, was a ham radio operator. Ken Jordan, guy I worked with on several disasters, was a wood carver. And at night, to decompress, he would make these wood carvings. Some people play guitar, some people paint, photography. Mayor of one small town I worked with on a big disaster was a photographer. And he would just always had his camera with him during the disaster. He's always taking snapshots, capturing memories. So whatever it is for you, that's going to help you get manage that personal stuff. I'm also a big proponent of counseling. FEMA was horrible at it when I first started. I thought the stress counselors weren't well trained in what we do, and they kind of would stress me out. But they got better and better. And after I worked Haiti earthquake in 2010, which was the worst disaster I ever worked in terms of loss of life, 250,000 people killed, moving bodies with bulldozers and all that, and all the kids that were orphaned. It was really sad. Um, and we were sleeping in the embassy on the floor and our sleep bags. We were just there. And we didn't realize how emotionally involved we got. And they made us all go through counseling after we left Haiti. It was really healthy. It was really beneficial just sort of get it out and talk through it. So I'm kind of a big proponent of that too. But I wanted to conclude with that, just looking out for your team and looking out for yourself. I think we pile a ton on you guys in these disasters, and I think you got more coming down the road. You're going to be asked to show up more and more. You're going to be asked to take on more responsibility with maybe less support. And I just want you, we need you, and I just want you take care of yourselves, you take care of each other. So, David, my last slide. So the only thing I'm going to throw at you is I'm on the board of directors of the Emergency Management External Affairs Association. David's going to share the link with you. We're getting up and going, been around for about a year now. I'm really proud of it. We do a lot of stuff for free, technical assistance. We have people contact us to talk through problems. We're non-political. We're just about helping disaster communicators. And external affairs phrase means, we cover the PIOs, we cover the folks who deal with legislators, the community relations, the tribal folks, anyone who's involved in delivering information during disasters, and that's their role and responsibility in their job. We want to support. And so I wanted to share this organization, put a plug in for it, and let you know that it's out there as another resource. There is a membership fee to join, but I think it's going to be something pretty special. So I just wanted to share that with you. Finally, I just want to say thanks for your time, and thanks for having me there, and thanks for joining me on your lunch hour. And I hope you're all doing well. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn or reach out, please do. I do tons of stuff for free. I love talking to people in this business and sharing ideas or connecting people. So if I could ever help you, or you got a question, or you just want to connect, please do. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. That's probably number one for me, but I threw out my other contact info as well. David, I'll toss it back to you, my friend. You're on mute, David.
There we go. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate that. It's just I'm out of practice. It's been a couple months since we've done one of these live, and I'm messing up the mute button. So anyway, thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate it. It was a great presentation. I will throw it up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions for Ed? You can put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask him directly.
I'll go ahead and start. This is Eric from Florida. Hi, Ed. How are you?
Hi. Oh, Eric?
Yes.
Oh, hey, Eric. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you.
I was a very informative session, a lot of good information. When you were talking about developing, the team dynamic, the one thing that you said, and also know about your people, the firefighter whose wife was in the water. Did you ever or learn whatever happened to? That was one thing I was thinking about throughout the session when you said it. Whatever happened to his wife?
She's fine. Yeah,
Good.
She was rescued and she was fine. Yep. He didn't know for about 24 hours. They sent him home once he told him. But yeah, she was fine.
All right.
Yeah,
that answers my question. Thank you so much. I know there's some other questions that are popping up now that David will be able to talk to you about.
Excellent. Great question. So we do have a question from Robin in chat. She says, if you are starting from scratch, what are the top 3 to 5 things you would include in your crisis communication plan?
Uh, Gosh, that's a good one. And you other folks might have feedback on this too, Robin. Gosh, if I was starting and I need a plan, I think I would start with contacts. I would number one for me would be contacts. First of all, key internal people, and then PIOs who are going to make up my team, whether inside my organization or outside my organization. And so that would be number one for me. Just have build a really, really good contact list. Gosh, number two, what would I do? Number two, make sure that everybody has my contact information. They know how to get hold of me. And then number three, I think I would start putting together just to, especially, and this is the way I kind of started, just some key messages. And you can either do it general that are applicable to any type of event, or you could do some event messaging, but I'd start just building sort of a portfolio of key messaging, just so I had something to get me going right away, trigger to get in the flow. So the screen wasn't blank, the air wasn't dead air. That I just had something to go momentum, because those first 8 to 12 hours are so crazy. If you got some sort of anchor, something to hold on to, it can get you going quicker. But David, that's a great question. I'm sure other people have feedback on for Robin as well.
That is a great question. I agree with you completely. The contacts, you're in chaos. There's a lot of stuff going around. You'll forget somebody, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the specific person, but the office. I got to let this office, this agency, this partner, whatever, know that we're up and running and going. Make that list. And I like the templates. You can never have enough templates. If you start messaging things, use that message today to create a template, because you will use it again in the future. And then I would add, what he didn't say would be just a set of beginning, almost like an agenda of what your morning is going to be, or whenever this starts. Because again, I'll go, it's chaos. There's a lot of stuff happening. You want to do 100 different things and you can't. So where do I start? Get me 3, 5, 10 different steps to make over the next couple of hours. And by the end of that couple hours, you'll be feeling good about yourself and making progress. And then from there, it's just on to recovery. So great question.
Yeah, very good.
Ryan has a question for us. So, given the rising frequency and the severity of high impact disasters, how might the recent elimination of funding for the Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, the BRIC program, affect the ability of local and state agencies to manage crisis communications effectively, if at all?
Well, I think that's another. I think that's very representative of where we're going. Looks like the federal government's getting out of preparedness, mitigation, probably even looking at stricter declaration criteria, federal declaration criteria of states. So I think it's going to have a big impact. I think both states and local communities, you probably got some tough calls you're going to have to make. I think every person I talk to at state, and especially at the local level, I mean, you guys already got so much on your plate, and the priority I hear over and over is, we just got to be ready when a disaster strikes. We got to stay focused on that. That's what I would recommend. I think a lot of these preparedness and mitigation stuff, either, you're gonna, state and local gonna have kicking money, or you're gonna have to look at some creative leveraging and partnership building with the private sector, which could pay off. And you're gonna have to decide, how much time and energy I have to spend in that area to pick up the slack. And will that compromise my ability to be operationally ready when disaster strikes? So I think it's definitely going to have an impact. And I think the way I would approach it, especially if I was at the local level, is I would make response my first priority. Am I ready to respond to help save lives, protect property when something bad happens? And I got to make sure that's covered first. I can't blow it there. And then if I have more resources, more time, more energy, money, then I can start to pick up the slack and cover some of that preparedness and mitigation stuff. But and that's just me. But I think it is going to have an impact, and I think you're going to have to make some tough choices at your level. And my recommendation, though, is I would not let response lose your attention. I would make sure you're ready on that front. Other people may disagree with me, but I'm kind of a response first guy.
All right, excellent. Oh, and Ryan says thank you. Any other
Mhm.
questions out there? All right, hearing none. Again, Ed, I want to thank you. Everybody hang around just a couple of seconds. I'm going to have some announcements. I'll let you know what the upcoming schedule is. But again, thank you so much, Ed. It was a great presentation. I appreciate it. I see your book in the background. Again, I have my copy right here. So promote the dog sitter if you have the opportunity. And I do believe you have a new one coming out, don't you, Ed?
I do, and I got a new book coming out in 2026 for the. It's not all about 9/11, but it's time to come out for the 25th anniversary of 9/11. So it'd be yeah, disaster stories and leadership observations, and what it's like to do our job in tough times.
Well, we seem to do them a lot here in Kentucky. That is for sure. We just got our second major disaster declaration going on like a week now. So we are working one from February, one from April. It has been a long 2025. Kentucky needs a break. So again, thank you. Everybody help me give you a virtual round of applause for Ed. I am going to share my
Thank you.
screen again. We'll go through the announcements and then I'll get you all out of here. So once again, everybody has my contact information. I've got a QR code there. I make no money off of it, but if you guys don't have a dot card and you're in the business of making contacts and networking, you need to get a dot card. It's the greatest thing ever. $20. That QR code is mine for life. I love it. So if you don't have me in your phone, take a picture of it and then you will. Upcoming schedule. So in May, again, the last Wednesday in May, we're going to do From Audit to Action, building a 5-year communication plan. And then in June, we're going to do scientific communication, thoughts and considerations. I don't have that presentation yet from the speaker, but I'm hoping that we all deal with language that we have to basically translate and push off to the layman. And I'm hoping that this is going to kind of be useful to everybody, no matter what your field is in. So I'm looking forward to that as well. A little bit more. So our speaker next month is Jennifer Preston. She's a public information officer from the town of Collierville, Tennessee. Like I said, she's going to talk about doing an audit, working it all the way through a 5-year communication plan. So I'm looking forward to that. Registration for this event is open. You can go to our page and register just like with the rest of the webinars. I will get registration open soon for the June webinar, the scientific communications. Other than that, again, thank you, Ed. I appreciate everybody showing up. I am glad to be back. I do not like taking hiatuses from this. I love doing this every month. So here's to seeing you guys again next month. I will put together the recording and the resources. I'll shoot out an email as soon as I get it done, at latest early next week. Otherwise, have a great and lovely afternoon, and we'll talk again soon.